Today we're going to talk about whether the ending es is nominative or accusative. If I remember in my chart, all of the third declension nouns have es for their nominative and es for their accusative when they're plural. These are accusative plurals uh, and nominative plurals. Both of them are es. So when I get both of them in a sentence, or when I get one in the sentence and I have to determine whether or not it's nominative or accusative, what are some things that I can do to kind of help me out? And that's what this lesson is about. How do I know in this sentence, number one, for example, how do I know that clamores is nominative plural? How do I know if it's accusative plural? Looking at sentence number one, I see the word pueri to begin with. It has the letter I. We know that the letter I is nominative and plural and masculine. If I've already established that this word is nominative, I do not have a conjunction like et connecting these two words. So if pueri is nominative, clamorous cannot be nominative. So if I'm asking myself whether or not clamorous is nominative or accusative, if pueri is nominative and I don't have a conjunction to connect the two, I've eliminated the possibility of nominative for clamorous. That tells me that it's accusative and plural. And why is that important? Well, if I'm dealing with subject as a nominative, a main verb, and then a direct object as an accusative, I can look back and see that I have an accusative here, accusative plural and masculine. So I have boys. That's the subject because it is nominative right there. It's nominative, right? I can see that the verb is obviously adu. So the boys here. And then I look back over here and I see that my accusative is clamores. So I will use the shouts as my direct object. Then I put it all together. The boys here shouts. So in this sentence right here, how am I determining whether or not it's nominative or accusative? What way am I determining that's nominative or accusative? It is, I've already established with pueri, I've established a nominative already. So if I've already established a nominative, then I can exclude nominative as a possibility for the es. Sentence number two. As I get to pueros, I look at pueros, I see the os, and I notice that that is accusative. It is, let me erase this other stuff so we're not confused by it. Erase this stuff here. When I see pueros, I see accusative, I see plural, I see masculine. In this case, again, I don't have a conjunction to join these two. I'm still trying to decide whether I have an accusative or a nominative. If pueros is accusative, I can't have two accusatives without a conjunction. So accusative is gone. My only possibility for clamorous now is nominative. Nominative, plural, and masculine. And again, that's important so that when I go over to translate my sentence, I know that my subject is going to be the nominative, shouts. My verb is fear or terrify, scare. And my direct object is the accusative, boys. So the shouts scare the boys. How am I able, or in what way am I able to determine whether or not clamorous is accusative or nominative? Well, I've already established an accusative. Just like in the sentence one, I established a nominative. If I've established an accusative already, then the es ending can't be accusative. It has to be nominative. So way number two to establish whether or not es is nominative or accusative is by establishing an accusative. Let's look at sentence number three. Okay, as I look at sentence number three, I'm going to begin with the first one. Princeps. Coach, I'm not really sure what princeps is. That's fine. That's fine. We'll look that word up when we're done. I get to senatorus, I see my es. I have to decide whether or not I have a nominative or accusative again. I don't have something that I recognize as a nominative. I have an accusative right here, but it's part of that prepositional phrase. I don't have a nominative. I don't have an accusative to establish, so what can I do? Well, if it were nominative and plural and masculine, then senatorus would have to agree with the verb. Revocat is singular. It's not nt, it's just t. If the nominative and the verb have to agree, if the nominative and the verb have to agree in number, senatorus does not agree with revocat in number. So I don't have a nominative here. I have an accusative. If it were nominative, it would have to agree in number with revocat. So I'd have revocant. In this case, I have revocat. So if it doesn't agree, it has to be accusative. So when I translate this sentence, I look up princeps. I find out that it's nominative, it's singular, it's masculine, it's the third declension word. So I have the subject is the emperor, or we'll say prince. The verb is revocat, calls back or recalls. And the direct object is senators. It is accusative because if it were nominative, it wouldn't agree with revocat. I have the prince or the emperor recalls the senators, and then the ad verbum is to the city. How was I able to determine that the es was accusative? Well, it didn't agree with the verb. And if it's supposed to be nominative and plural, and the verb is singular, they don't agree. So you have to change it to accusative. So number 3 is agreement with the verb. Es must have an nt at the end of the verb in order to agree. All right, looking at number 4. On number 4, I have principium. That's accusative. There's no conjunction here. This is es. I have to decide, is it nominative or accusative? I've established that this is accusative, singular, and masculine. I haven't established number one right here. Number 2, I've established an accusative, right? I've established an accusative, so I have a nominative here. I'm done. Subject is senators. The verb is excipient, welcomes, and then principium is my direct object. So the senators welcome the senator. And again, with that one, number 4, I've used the rule up here, or the help number 2 up here. This one. I've established an accusative. That's accusative, so that can't be accusative, has to be nominative. The whole purpose of this is to decide whether the es is nominative or accusative. If I establish one of the other words in a sentence as a nominative or an accusative, then I can eliminate one of the possibilities, so it has to be the other. And in this case, I've established the accusative. So if I've already established accusative, then the accusative plural is not a possibility for senatores. So it has to be nominative. That's it. I mean, that's really all that there is to deciding whether the es is nominative or accusative. Let's continue on to number 5. Number 5 here, I have 2 es's. Both of them have the possibility of being nominative or accusative. So how do I tell which one is which? Sometimes you're going to have, well, because the verb agrees, right? Verb agrees with both of them. So I can't use verb agreement. I can't establish one as a nominative. I can't establish one as an accusative. So I can't use 1, 2, or 3 up here. So what do? Well, I'm going to try both. So I'm going to put my subject, my verb, and my direct object over here. I'm going to start with clamores. we'll just go with the English. Shouts. My verb is hears, and then ma trace is mothers. And I try that sentence out. Shouts, hear, should be here, not hears. Shout, hear, mothers. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I've tried clamorous as a nominative. I've tried mothers as an accusative. That didn't work. So I'm going to try mothers as the nominative, which would make it the subject. Hear, and then I'm going to put shouts as the accusative. Mothers hear shouts. That does make sense. The mothers hear the shouts. So in this case, I can only establish accusative or nominative plural by using context of the sentence or sense. What makes sense? One makes sense, the other one doesn't. I try both. The one that makes the most sense is that this is accusative plural and masculine, and that this is nominative plural and feminine. That's what makes sense here. All right, going to number 6. Whenever I read number 6, I get mognos here. I know that that's accusative plural and masculine. I get to clamores. Es, is it accusative or is it nominative? This time the adjective is going to help me decide. Adjectives have to agree in case, number, and gender with the words that they modify. So if it agrees, it's going to be accusative, plural, and masculine. That's how I decide whether this es right here is nominative or accusative plural. If this one is already established as an accusative, then this es, if I've already established an accusative, this es has to be nominative, masculine and plural. So whenever, and this of course is a verb. So I go, subject is the nominative, which is fathers. The verbs here. The direct object is the accusative clamorous, shouts. The mognos is going to modify the clamorous. We're going to call that loud, or it means large, but we're going to change it to loud. The fathers hear the loud shouts. Now, how was I able to determine whether or not the es was accusative or nominative plural? I did that by using agreement again, but not the agreement of the verb, agreement with the adjective. And remember that adjectives have to agree in case, number, and gender. In this case, mognos is the clue that leads me to clamorous being accusative, plural, and masculine. As far as patres is concerned, I established an accusative already. So if I've already established an accusative, then es has to be nominative. Let's look at the last sentence, number 7, and let's see how we establish the es on these two words as nominative or accusative. I'm going to give you guys a second, so go ahead and push pause. I'll give you guys a second to figure this out on your own. Push pause. Okay, hopefully you got what I got, which is this. When I see mogni, that's an adjective. I know that mogni, the letter I, makes nominative, it makes a plural, and it makes a masculine. Adjective, case, number, and gender means that clamorous is also going to be nominative, plural, and masculine. If I've established a nominative and I get another es, then it's going to be accusative, plural, and masculine. Then I get my verb. So subject is the shouts. The verb is scare. The direct object is fathers. And I get an adjective for shouts, loud. The loud shouts scare the fathers. Based on clamorous being nominative, it is the subject. Based on patres being the accusative, it is the direct object. So which of these did I use? I used 2 of them. I used 2 of them in this case. First thing that I used was the agreement of the adjective. with magni being nominative, that made clamorous nominative and plural. And because I already established a nominative, that means that this has to be accusative. So deciding whether es is nominative or accusative plural is basically one of these five things. You're going to have an established nominative. So if you already have an established nominative, the es has to be accusative. You're going to have an established accusative. So if you've already established an accusative in the sentence, then the es has to be nominative. Agreement with a verb. If the es is nominative, then the verb is going to have to end in nt. So if the verb is singular and you have an es, then you're dealing with an accusative. If the verb is plural, nt, and you have an es, then you could still have a nominative. Not necessarily, but you could. The fourth way is context. We use that one with this guy right here. Both of them could be accusative. Both of them could be nominative plural. We tried them both out. One made sense, one didn't. So we're using context or sense. The last one that we used was agreement with the adjective. The adjectives have to agree with the word that they modify in case, number, and gender. So magnos gives me a clue that clamorous is nominative, masculine, or I'm sorry, accusative, masculine, and plural. And guys, that's it. That's how we tell whether es is nominative or accusative plural.